And we're live. Sorry, folks. Ran out of memory. Should have activated the swap space. Naughty Ben. So we're back. Oh dear. Part 5. Yes. Should have been 4 parts, but I'm going to share the screen. Hopefully I don't disappear. Although some people might think that's a good thing. Right.
Oh, God.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Model G. And so we're concentrating on control position in the INFP. Viktor conceives this as this position. The individual has very little energy for it, but they're thinking about things related to this function a lot. Mm. And I think what happens is this function is pretty much suppressed by the lead function. So if we go back to the lead function about what the lead function actually is, it's Fi in this case. And so...
So was the Fe was minus or plus here? Minus.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point, Hannah. I forgot about that. Fe minus, which Viktor describes as negative emotions. Let's find the description here. Now, after thinking this, I was thinking, oh, how is he going to describe the ENFJ? He might be describing some kind of witch or something. But Hannah and I have looked at an early draft of it in terms of a Google Translate, and it's not as bad as it appears to be. So, for instance, he's put here, being angry, indignant, dramatizing events, ridiculing others, escalating conflicts emotionally. That's the way the ENFJ acts. Whoa. And David Mark Kersey said, whoa, doesn't Viktor realize that's quite negative? That's, my mother's an ENFJ. I don't agree. And
well, I could say that I am like this. I can be like that, but only with the very closest people.
Ah.
But hey, now INFP or this wait, I'm reading here. This RT type that we are going through now also has this negative Fe. So
yeah, that's the thing. This is where it's tricky. So if we go back to the description, if we go through the bullet points and use one of my cliches, put some meat on the bones. Yeah. People. Oh yeah. Just so I don't forget about it, we INTPs have mixed feelings about ENTPs. This is Viktor's official photo demonstrating TI plus in ENTPs, and because Viktor has a thing about TI plus, and you see, classical socionics was invented by ACIR, who was an ENTP, and Viktor has got it in for this kind of logic. So if we put here for TI plus, that is the logic of information socionics, as well as the structure. So for instance, that's normal socionics he calls information socionics. Now his socionics, he puts here, because he uses multi-angle thinking and takes a bit from different areas, so like us. Even though it's not one of your functions, it's what you do, you are multi-angle. This is the logic of energy, synergistic socionics, and the kind of... So for instance, he's really having it in for the people, for the other types, other schools of socionics. So he calls that, this is the linear dogmatic logic for TI plus.
So just to rehear, what was so INFPs and ENFJs? Do they have TI minus or TI plus?
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to admit they have TI plus. But Viktor always has an inbuilt caveat. And his caveat is that people can change.
Thank God. Yeah.
I love this. Function signs are subject to occasional change. So, yeah, as people know, he has it in for the classical socionics. And so that is why he demonstrates an ENTP as being like this. And so I asked him in the group, and these are the things that people are missing in Viktor Gulenko's Model G Facebook group. And so I asked him, does this demonstrate the obsessive linear logic in the ENTP? Viktor's reply, yes.
But would you? But if I ask about the change, I'm thinking about the changing, the capability to change, because I of course think that we are able to change. But would you say that it's easier for us to change our stronger functions in general? I mean, those higher or more prominent, in a more prominent position, or those that have weaker? Well,
you know what? I think you're right about that. But you see, because it's a function that has a high information and you're thinking about it a lot, you probably are going to use a lot of different angles on it. Because if someone's thinking about something a lot, they're not, they're going to be something like this. On this hand, on the other hand. So they are going to use different angles, I suppose. Just noticed something about this photo. It's actually got a little bit of sellotape holding the glasses together. He's really going for the cliches on this. Right, and people can judge for themselves whether that looks like Jack. Well, now, my personal opinion is Jack was a lot better here when he had his hair cut short for a role. Right. What do you think, Hanna?
I haven't seen too many pictures of him.
Right. Okay. This is really inside baseball stuff that we shouldn't really be talking about. Right. But these are well-known celebrities amongst socionics.
Yeah, and I've been typed. Right. I've been typed by. I'm grateful. I've been typed by Jack and other socionists in the World Socionic Society. Can I tell what they typed me as? Oh
yeah, you can. Yeah, it's up to you.
So they were quite unanimous in typing me as ESI. So wait, so in Model G it would be closest to RS.
Yes.
FISI. But they, but I don't know.
Yeah, Viktor's not typed as OS because you're not got the. No, I don't think. Anyway, that's a future series of videos that should be 4. Hopefully, it's 4 rather than 5. There'd only be 5 if there's a balls up. So if we go back to FE.
Yes.
Oh, I get it. I think the idea here is that. INFP. Socionics defines FE as ethics of emotions, and so part of that is half of FE is reading other people's emotions, and the other half of it is the ability to change other people's emotions. And so this is why ENFJs and ESFJs are very good at being hosts or hostesses. Also, ESFP and ENFP, because they have creative FE. So they can use that to change the mood, to be charismatic. I can give you an example of a charismatic ESFP. Bill Clinton. I agree with Jeff that he's an ESFP. I don't know what Hanna thinks about
that. Yeah, it's not impossible.
It sounds impossible or possible?
It's not impossible.
Oh, okay. A ringing endorsement.
that was a very Finnish,
Yes.
Yeah, discreet. Neutral.
Yes, neutral. Very good. So for instance, here we go. Monitors manifestations of emotions in others. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I mean, at least with me, that is true. I do that all the time.
right. So this would be, even though INFP, FiNx is concentrating on their own emotions, because they are a feeling type, they can easily monitor the emotions of other people. Because they're very emotionally literate. Just based on their own emotions, they are emotionally sophisticated.
But how accurate is this? I mean, if I think about the control function in general, or element, I don't know how you call it here.
Well,
how good is it in what it is doing?
Well, I would think it monitors the manifestations of emotions and others. So, for instance, if we talk, if you have a very good actress and you're looking at the acting of a very good actress, they're going to be looking at the manifestations of it and saying, "Oh, that looks real," whereas in actuality, it's all a fraud, it's all a fake. So they are just looking at the manifestations of it. Now, but somebody who's really good, someone who's a really good con artist, and what actually happens in acting, in the best acting, and ever since the 1950s they've like taught this technique, is you actually feel what you're expressing. So EJR&D once did a video where he talked about the way to manipulate INFJs is to actually feel about the emotion that you're trying to express, actually feel it, and then the INFJ will pick up on that. Because they're just reading those emotions. Now, most people can't act that well, but again, it's with age. I mean, to me, Obama's FE appears false and forced, but to a lot of other people, it doesn't. So age will. But again, it's just looking at objective manifestations of emotions in others, and of course, there is going to be a semi-conscious, this facial reaction in this context means this, and they have a whole data bank of, and this is why you can have the same person 10 years later be a lot more sensitive to just emotions, because they recognize things. Those little signals, it's just like if someone learns body language, they might think back and go, whoa, I didn't notice all this stuff 5 years ago. And just through general experience, people notice more emotions than other people, and will say 10 years later, they might watch the same piece of acting and go, whoa, I used to think he was a good actor. That's really overacted. So just sensitivity with age, I suppose. And I would say feeling types care more about that. They're looking for it more.
So did each R&D say which type would be good at creating those emotions in oneself?
Well, Jeff has talked about how ESFPs can be chameleons, and they are like the #1 type to be a thespian, an actor or actress. And their type is even called the performer. And now some of them cheat. They do something called a substitution, where, for instance, if a scene calls for a character to be very upset and crying, they will concentrate on a part of their life where they felt the same emotions and channel that as an emotion memory. And so they're actually thinking about something tragic that has happened in their own life, holding on to the memory of that in order to feel emotion. So it's an actual substitution. And you get that in, that's part of method acting, rather than somebody who is able to imaginatively put themselves in that character's actual position and to actually feel what they imagine the character is feeling in that moment. And that would be an empathy point of view. And and the audience will have the same response. Lots of people will feel the emotions that they believe that the person is feeling on screen. If you're ever moved by a particular film.
Mm.
So we've digressed a bit. We've sort of gone into the subject of reading emotions.
Yeah, but it's interesting.
Yeah. And I would say this would be something particularly apparent when people are younger. So, for instance, I'm a lot better at this now than I used to be, say 15 years ago. In fact, no, 20 years ago. I'm a lot better at this now. So if you, for instance, if you see, you know how they talk about, there's that cliche of the socially awkward teenager.
Yeah.
Well, there's certain teenagers, right? If they're ethical types, they are not socially awkward. They are like pros. They know exactly what's going on. But if you like see a teenage INTJ or INTP or ENTP, they're going to look a lot more awkward than their ESFP, ESFJ counterparts.
Yeah, but I was an awkward teenager.
Oh,
yeah, I was awkward.
There's no need to bust up a good theory, Hannah. I don't mind.
But I mean, there's no denying that I was. But thing is, we talked about this, maybe it was offline. We talked about this emotion detecting test, where there are only the eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought that I would score well, but I didn't score. I mean, I didn't score badly, but I didn't score like really high. It was more like moderate. And I was a bit disappointed because I thought that I'm good at reading emotions. Because I have also, I think I've been a sort of emotional barometer in my childhood family in some way. So that's why I thought I had this developed sense of emotions, but I apparently don't.
It depends on how big was your monitor at the time? Were you wearing glasses? Did you need to wear glasses? Did you watch? Did you have it sort of trained up by watching particularly good acting in a TV series that you become? Because from my point of view, I was like obsessing over acting, and this is why I frequently bring it up in Hangouts, where in Battlestar Galactica Mark II, the two on there who are amazing are Edward James Olmos, and in like season 4, oh no, spoiler, that means he's still alive in season 4. All right, is that he in nearly every story he's crying, but it's like brilliant crying acting. And also Katie Sackhoff, who played Starbuck, she amazing, and so when you like concentrate on those and sort of get the point of view, whoa, these are really good, and like really concentrate on their eyes, then you have this sort of like, you become like a connoisseur in that department, and then when you do the eye test, then you're going to notice these things.
Yeah, of course.
And so what I tend to notice at the moment is those people that are limited, where usually you can see someone, they're like a fine actor or a fine actress, but when they have to do a scene where they're crying, it's just not coming across, because they're not actually, the actual actor or actress is not feeling it at that time. The good ones are actually crying. They're actually feeling it. Right, so FI Dom's good at reading emotions as well. It's just that usually they care more about their own emotions if there's a conflict. But most of the time there's not going to be a conflict, and they are going to be sensitive to other people.
But it immediately notices when growing emotional stress. What do you mean by that?
I don't know. I think we're going to have to interpret that both ways. I would think that because it's the FE function, I would think it's focused on other people. And I would think that it maybe notices it in other people. What do you think?
I think that I notice it in both in myself and in other people.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what it means.
And the third one.
That's so true. That's so true. The third one. That's so true. Well, we have. Yeah, we have evidence of this.
You see, if I had one of those key rings, where it had sounds, I would like press the button and it would like do the sound, and then your response would be, right, Ben, this hangout's over.
Yeah, you can try. It will be over.
I don't do that. I'm not an ESTP. Right. Does not like loud compliment. So you don't walk by any building sites?
Well, in Finland you can walk anywhere because no one does that.
Oh, okay.
You're safe.
Well, even the builders, very good. Very polite ESTPs in Finland. Right.
Unless they're drunk, but they are usually not drunk when they're working. So.
Maybe if they're drunk, they can't get the whistle right.
Yeah.
And it's like, woo. Right. So maybe you could do any more details on that about not liking crowds?
Well, sometimes I like crowds. I prefer to live in urban areas, so I don't mind. I like the feeling of people being around me. So, for instance, I prefer living in what's the word? House of blocks, or this?
Yes.
You know what I mean. You know, these with several.
House of blocks.
Yeah, house, whatever. That, you know, I feel safer.
Block of flats, housing blocks,
block of flats,
sort of a unit. Yeah.
Yes. So I like the idea of having people, you know, people around me, and sometimes I enjoy walking on a crowded street. I'm just walking, like being alone. I don't have to react to people really, but I like the idea, the feeling of being in a crowd. But I hate big concerts or anything where there's really a lot of people, or I get really anxious in those kind of situations.
Right. I was just going to put here when you said house of blocks. So you don't live in a Lego set.
Well, we almost live because we have lots of Legos here, but yeah, not exactly.
Oh yes, that's a good one. Yes, you got so much Lego around you from children. You do live in a Lego set. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Loud compliments. Do you want to talk about any situations where you get that, and then how you feel, that sort of thing?
I just get, you know, I never blush. That's my skin type is so that I never blush. But if I did, I would blush and feel so uncomfortable if there is a compliment. I just I don't have skills to receive a compliment. It makes me really uncomfortable.
Is it also, though, that the type of man that would give a loud compliment might be a person with? So it's not just the wolf whistle, but it's the type of man who would say such a thing. Would have other negative qualities that we could say are, say, ESTP-ish.
That's possible. Yes. I'm trying to think about any situation, but it doesn't happen. I mean, seriously, if it happens in Finland, it's always a foreigner, not it's not a Finnish person. I am not sure. I don't think I've ever received a compliment from a Finnish person. So it's also a little bit culture. But I do know that some of my friends do receive compliments from Finnish people also. So maybe that's just something, you know.
That's a nice self-effacing comment.
Maybe there's just something wrong with me. Maybe I don't deserve compliments. That's a possibility.
Okay.
Let's not go in that.
Okay, I won't take the bait. I won't.
Yeah, you shouldn't, because I don't want to blush here.
Okay. No. Right. So here's a good one. openly expressing their experience gives him a hard time.
What experience? And what it depends on what experience.
Well, I would imagine an emotional experience.
Well, like I've said, I don't cry publicly, so it would be very awkward, like super awkward to cry if I needed, if it was something that I would induce some kind of emotional, openly emotional reaction, like crying. But I don't have any problem talking about my emotions.
Ah, yeah, that's different. Yeah,
it's very different.
And like here, we're in a context of typology, and we're sort of talking about it in a detached framework about emotions that you're not necessarily feeling right at the moment, and you can look at them objectively. Whereas I suppose it's right at the time where someone's feeling those tough emotions, but it's hard for them to express it as it's happening. Because I think you once said that someone posted something in a Facebook group that you were upset with, and at the time you didn't want to express something.
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes I do. It depends. Also, it depends on the emotion. Some emotions are easier. For example, anger is something I'm quite comfortable expressing.
I hope not to encounter that.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I promise I will give some hint before it happens. But yeah, anger is not that difficult emotion to express. But well, sometimes it depends on the issue, of course. But I do tend to express my emotions, but I try to be polite. Like I don't lash out.
Right.
I rarely lash out like that. No, I don't.
Well, what I'll do is, just in the meantime, while what I'm going to do is, I'll put the diagram up, which gives the explanation, and then what I'll do is I'll also put the model G of ENFJ in here as well. But I'll just go to this one, and then while I find the oh yes, just forget. This is from Hangout number 2. This is the bit. I told you the story behind this, Hanna.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned it in the Hangout though. This is the exact.
I think you did. Yeah, we talked about this because I know. Yeah.
Yeah. Where well, Dario wasn't in this Hangout, and I gave Dario's definition of NE, like trans-contextual thinking, and then Victor. This is like a second or two after Victor said he agreed with that definition. So I'm happy.
Yeah.
Scott's just a photo there. This fella's happy. Jack, not so happy. Not so happy with Victor agreeing with them. So, and I've not taken that out of context. Anyhow. Right, okay. That's a little, yes. You can look at this and other people look at this while I just find a particular graphic. Oh, it's a little bit of a trick. It might be harder for you, not being in England, but you should still be able to do it, I reckon.
Yeah, I can do it.
Right, so I'm just going to find a graphic. Right. I'm just going to find the ENFJ. Oh, excellent. Found very quickly. Right. Okay, that's copied across. Right. It's amazing though, isn't it? Right. Right.
It's interesting though because Finnish words are a lot longer. So I wonder if it works in Finnish.
Ah, that is a very good point. Because a lot of those words Although you get with important. Yeah. Also, it's amazing. It's like there's a picture of Lincoln that's only like 64 squares, and people can still recognise it's Lincoln.
Mm.
Right. Okay. ENFJ. So we're looking at FE. It's probably this one. Right. So if we compare Hamlet, FE lead function with NE. So
you have some kind of some version.
Yeah, but it's like this is just like the version without any. Oh, did you want this? I'm sorry, I could have sent it to you then.
Yeah, I've never seen this.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay, but I'm just curious. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and people can see what I've done. That I didn't want to draw this out 16 times, so I did it, and then I cut holes in it, and then I put a sheet of paper underneath.
Ah, yeah.
And I did that 16 times. Of course, what I should have done is put the charges on, but oh well.
Well, you can add them.
And then what I did is I cut even bigger holes, and then I did those sheets that's like slid in when I did like the hand-drawn profiles. So, for instance, the one that we've just been looking at, and as I cut even bigger holes, and then did a sheet underneath, and slid that underneath.
So you're good at craft. You're good at crafts.
Not really. Not.
I think this proves you are.
Well, it takes so long, though.
Yeah.
And I did actually have quite. When I did the Kersey thing about crafts, is I scored quite high, but then again, lots of people like in the arts would score high on that. I mean, right.
Hey,
we might as well talk about it.
There's a different name for the 7. It's not a break.
Yes, yes. It is me misspelling Holt and putting a U in it, because I asked Vilena Simon, and she was like, she looked at the Russian word, and when I suggested it should be break, she suggested that Holt would be a better word.
I have to check the Finnish translation because I don't understand it. So
it's like either halt or break. So halt as in stop, the stopping function. So it's like halt, who goes there? And I suppose the benefit of halt is that it doesn't have a double meaning like the way break does. Right, so also be translated to break. But now I call it break. And Maria translated it to break as well. So anyhow, so you're fascinated by this, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well, do you want to talk about certain bits of it?
No. Let's go to.
Okay, because I'll just say this bit here. So what you're saying about FE, that could fit FE management. Now the NE. Now, but NE is the servant of the FE mistress in your case. So this is what is done. This is used to implement the FE things. Now, what that looks like, I can't quite remember. Maybe the ENFJ is funny, or comes up with exciting possibilities of things in order to improve their social position or group harmony. I'm trying to think how they use NE creatively. So that will be in Maria's translation. Anyhow, so I will send you that.
That's nice.
And then we can, right. There we go. And I can send you the ones for the other types as well.
Yeah.
Because I did do all 16. I think I did post them in Model G.
Oh well, yeah. Then I can find them there.
Yeah. Okay. Don't worry, Rowan's looking at you. Don't worry. Right. So this, the FE. Right, now we can do a bit more on the theory of the control function. Right, so we've already done least energy, biggest information. Right. So, do you think a lot? It's hard to tell though between lead if the person's thinking about it a lot. Right. So we got here. Is that clear for you?
Yeah, it's okay.
Right. Okay. Okay. People know it's the inflation, but I might be able to get it a bit bigger for those people with a lower resolution. Mind you, don't want to go overboard. There we go. Right. Now this is an intertype relation thing, where the coach whose function is to drill, and this is why the other position is called the role position, which is now okay. So if we go with you being INFP, and we say this is, and you say you are FE control, you would be drilling people. Maybe you might be telling people about manners.
Yeah.
Rather than mainly performing them yourself, but you'll be more telling other people about these things, especially if the manners conflict with your staying true to yourself FI. And the theory is that I'll just put another graphic in, because then I can show what ESTJ looks like, because I can show where their role function is. TETESE. Oh, that's a way to because that's not the right thing. David Kersey has the ESFJ is sort of like a drill sergeant. ESTJ is sort of like a drill sergeant. Right, okay, so this trains the role function in ESTJ. So now I can show ESTJ. Right, because their role function is not Robespierre, Sturlis. So, okay, so this would be, so your husband got ESTJ, is that correct?
Yeah, but I think he's ISTJ.
Oh, okay.
But he got, he got the ESTJ from the test we had, this SOLTI test, I think.
Yeah. Is he a drill sergeant?
No, not at all.
No, okay. I'll remove that one then. But the theory is that you train their role for the INFP trains the ESTJ's role function, and like sort of nudges them and gives them little hints about how to improve their role function. And because the INFP doesn't really value it, then they're not sort of like, it's subtle with their jaw. So for instance, with ESFJ, they will say like FI things to like help the INTP. And the INTP's their control function is TE, and so they will have ideas that they can give to the ESFJ to sort of implement. I suppose that's how that works. Because we're on the more abstract part of the model now. So going back to the slides, so Sturlitz. I'll just remove Sturlitz. Put Sturlitz back in that folder. Okay, overwrite the file. we don't want to get too in the weeds with. I'll just go back to the explanation, and then we'll do the other function. Right. There. Right. Hannah, how much time do we have left?
Sorry. Maybe 45 minutes or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh. Right. Then we can do that for the next one. When we talk about the break function. We can talk about your experience with the snowstorm.
Mm.
Right. I'll just say a bit more about the control function and the way it's paired. Right. Okay. So I mentioned. Right. I mentioned this drills others. So I imagine INFP is giving advice about FE to other people, so probably manners, social customs, things like that. What's he put here? It is commonly referred to as the control function, as it keeps monitoring the surroundings. Right. Victor then gives the expression on the how the ISFJ uses their control SE. Right. Oh, right. Okay, right. So it's also training themselves. Right, okay, this is tricky. Right, ISFJ, because they are SI DOM, they have role function TI. Right, I'll show you that in a moment. SEI trains his ability to predict events as well as a sense of time. Right. He looks out for all the ways he can be violated and has to protect his territory. Right. Okay. So that's within the same type. Okay, so if I just explain that by going to that type. Right. It's going to be SI. It's going to be towards, it's not going to be that one. It's going to be probably this one. Yes. Right. So this is how they work together. ISFJ has this role, NI. Apparently this is a well-known Russian saying. Very sorry if double step on the same rake. You know, because you don't want to get whacked in the face twice.
Yeah.
Right, so basically they develop caution and prudence, and this then affects the way they see aggression. So as they develop this, they're going to see consequences of actions in terms of escalation of conflict. That would be, right, okay, okay, I'll let folks have a look at that for a moment. They can always pause the video to see that bit. Right. Let me know when you've read it. Right, okay.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, so, and then the SE there. Yeah, this is from the Google Translate version.
It's sometimes difficult, but there's so much overlap between these different kind of. But I'm thinking, yeah, this is SIFI.
Yeah.
So they are also trying to prevent aggressive outbursts. But how's that different from this INFPs?
Okay.
Reading emotions and then actively condemns obsession, rudeness, and coercion. How's that different from INFPs? paying attention to manners or something like that. I mean, it sounds quite similar to me.
I suppose the ISFJ is because they're focused on comfort. They're more monitoring for confrontation, and so they're probably even less. They're probably even more because they're generally like Enneagram 9, peacemaker.
You mean ISFJ is like Enneagram 9?
Yeah, I would think so. But yeah, that's a tricky one. They can be similar in that area. And then I suppose the key difference with the ISFJ is they really like clear instructions. Which fits the Guardians in Kersey. Yeah, study manuals, special books, charts, tables, so on. And then I sort of reworded the last bit. All the bits not in quotes are reworded bits by me. Right, compliance with regulations allows them to make life more stable. So anyone reading this profile should not, in my opinion, mix this up with the ISFP. Reading this section is enough for them to think, okay, this is a Guardian. This is a Guardian. Not an ISFP. Right, and so now we go to back to the explanation. Right, now we're really getting into the nitty-gritty of the relationship between the role function and the control function. That's the wrong one. That's ESFP. I'm going to go up here. Recently declassified profile. Yeah, I think. Right. Right. Okay. Here we go back to control function. Right. Right. So the idea. So it looks like they've actually now you can actually train it up in your dual, but it appears here you can train it up in yourself as well. So here, ISFJ trains his ability to predict events as well as a sense of time. So their role function being NI. He looks for ways he can be violated and has to protect his territory. So they learn how. So they're always on. So naturally they're on the lookout for aggression, because aggression is the opposite of comfort. And because they improve their NI over time, they can see how things can possibly escalate in terms of conflict. And so that is an example of that. And then if we go to the role function, number 3, this is the one, right. Gotcha. Right, so basically, got it. Right. Okay, here we go. This function is trained up a lot over time. This is the role, this is the position where someone really improves. So INTP over time improves their FI, and so they become, so for instance, say they improve a lot in their relations and things, and it needs constant practice. Yeah, I've underlined it, and then I've given my example of myself. Has to keep monitoring their own behaviour so they don't keep interrupting. That's something I've noticed in myself. And then in a dual relationship, that's going to be trained up by the ESFJ. Oh, and something else I noticed. With the INTP, and this is something I can admit to as an example of what happens, and a way for INTPs to grow is INTP is, that is LII, that is INT little j. They have a problem here. Well versed in business matters, don't have the energy or organizational skills. So you're probably thinking, Ben, how do we get better at this? Well, I'm going to give you the secret to INTPs of how to get better at TE. What do you think it is, Hannah?
I don't know. I would spend time with TEDs or people with.
What it is, in terms of the theory, it's as the INTP improves their FI, they can get other people to do it for them.
Yeah.
So
Delegation.
instance,
So yeah, delegation is always good.
Yeah. Because like if you have like a good business idea, or you have a good idea and go, oh, I know this person can help me, this person with these skills, rather than, so for instance, if I'm trying to draw something, I'm not drawing it very well. If I then get connections with people and can say, hey, can you help me with this? Or for instance, with these graphics, Scott Cowick helped me a lot with these graphics. I mean, you've seen the hand-drawn ones. So again, just improving the INTP for them to become more effective if they improve their people skills. And because the INTP, and Linda Bowen's work, the INTP has a good ability at knowing what people are good at and therefore being able to network people together around complementary competencies and abilities. And so that is how the INTP improves their TE, because it's very hard to get more energy or more organization of it, but the INTP can improve FI. And that is the key to growth for INTP. And then as just like INFP, if you have a young INFP that is like doesn't use their brain, and then as they get older they use their brain more, they see and it also what it also means is, and you've probably developed this as well by actually studying comparative religion and ethics, is just the ability to improve their logic will actually improve their FI, in terms of improve their ethics, because they learn to analyze it better.
You mean FE?
Oh, for INFP, you know, because they've got a lead FI and roll TI.
Yeah, but I mean, by using TI, I will improve my FE. You mean?
Oh, if you're an ENFJ, yes. I was just sort of saying in general for INFPs.
No, I meant INFPs.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm INFP,
yes.
my role is TI and my control is FE. So I will use my TI to improve my FE. No, yes. That's what you said.
That's a good point. But I was just talking sort of in general for personal development for an INFP is the INFP becomes better at logic in terms of, and they are then able to analyze their own beliefs better, and to sort of separate something from, the way I say it, something from something which is ethically doable in this world, from something which is too quixotic and naive. And then because they develop their TI, they can sort of tell the difference between the two and learn.
But I was thinking, well, now I got stuck with this idea that if I use my TI, I could develop my FE. So what I was thinking was an example of my life when I was a teenager, even as a child actually, but when I was in my teenager and in my early 20s, I read all these etiquette books. You know, these. Yeah. I studied etiquette. I studied good manners. You know, I'm thinking like I used my TI. Knowledge and to understand more about this FE or all these self-help books and everything, you know, reading about human nature. I've always been obsessed about human nature. What does it mean to be a human, and really about relationships and everything. So I was reading also all these typology interests. The motivation behind it is to understand people, to understand myself and to understand people, you know, how to relate to others. So that's how I see the TIFE. But that's, you're wrong.
That is a great example, and I'm going to rip it off and use it in future. But I'll always quote you and say, Hanna came up with this, and I think she's right.
That's my life. That's my life. I can show you the books for myself, all these self-help and especially the etiquette things. I think that's quite funny. And then I bought also these. There are these book series that this Culture Shock is the name of the book series, and then they have Culture Shock France or Culture Shock Germany and different countries. So I read these books that how to learn about different cultures, to learn about them by reading books and then learning the proper behavior in different cultures. That's what I did also.
That's great. I think that fits. I think that definitely fits. The INFP over time will learn the TI of FE, as you said, with manners. And I also think that they will learn to analyze their own feelings for what is the difference between an ethic that is also logical, because many ethical things are logical, and ethical things, so someone can instinctively know what the right thing is, and then if they analyze it, then it's logical as well. And then they can learn how to those instincts that might be, say, governed by because some INFPs can be Enneagram 4s, and with Enneagram 4s there can be envy, and if they learn to tell the difference between ethics and their own personal grudges and negative feeling, and so those two can like work together, and that is something that you get with that cognitive temperament, that anyone who is FI Dom will, like in the mature examples or just with intelligence, they will use that role function more, and so like you will get like FI Doms that are really analyzing their ethics all the while, and you probably do that a lot, like churning them around, analysis, and INTP learns to use their FI, and so that would be the shared thing in a cognitive point of view of their temperament. It's just like very hard to see. It's probably easier to see when types get older, because you'll probably see in like a middle-aged INTP, you can see their FI more easily than if they're younger. Right. So I think I did a bit on the training it up. Right. So you made a good point. Yes. The INFP trains their FE via learning about manners. In terms of social etiquette, social rules, very complex systems. I don't know if you might have even looked at some of the old-fashioned.
I have collected books. Sometimes I collected books from different time periods about etiquette and also, of course, of people. Well, if you go to universities, to anthropology departments, I'm sure you will find a lot of INFPs there, or comparative religion, where people spend time to understand different cultures and different manners and etiquettes. I think that's very INFP.
All right, I can tell a story. I think there was somebody that visited an island around Australasia, and I think he was showing to a chief. The story was it was showing him what a hat is, and fortunately, he touched the top of the chief's head, and he was then executed, because in that culture, touching the top of the chief's head meant, I want to be executed. So you gotta learn your manners.
Yeah.
Right. If we go straight to right, okay, yeah, because we can back this up. Right, yes, from research from Dario. So this actually backs up this, and it backs up, and of course, anybody, if you want to convert someone from MBTI, talk about their break function. So if you know an INFP, talk to them about SE, and they'll say, yeah, I hate it. I hate those ESTPs. Or you talk to anybody about their break function, because it's not covered in the children's version of MBTI, which is what's on the internet, because the proper MBTI does have an 8-function model. And Dario told me that, hey, they've developed it for 20 years. An 8-function model. But for this, key thing here, and he wrote this in 8 Keys to Self-Leadership. Least preferred function is the polar function, the break function. Least preferred function, along with role position. But as I said, that can improve over time. And oh yes, because of preference for functions in management and demonstrative positions, or what Dario would have said, preference for functions in lead and auxiliary positions, which have maximum energy, because you're in those two things all the while. And so initially an INFP is going to be suppressing their TI, because they're going for FI first, and TI is going to be suppressing FI. And then eventually over time they learn to improve that function, and then the polar function is just really weak, and it's really hard to improve this.
I can tell you a secret. I can tell you a secret about this. Well, we'll talk about this keys to cognition test. So yeah. I always test the lowest in SE, like it's unused.
Yeah.
With me.
Yeah.
It's the only function that is unused.
Right. Do you want to say why that might be from a biological point of view?
Biological point of view.
Or a genetic point of view?
Yeah. Because I have this. Well, it could be related to this being highly sensitive. Also, this warrior. Well, I don't know how you say it. Well,
someone who worries.
Yeah, high sensitivity towards dopamine. So I don't need external. How do you say?
Gotcha.
I don't need external stimulation to get my dopamine levels up, because they are already.
Right. So let's make a hypothesis. So is it a case of SPs do things which release dopamine? They love it. It's a real turn on for you. But when things happen to you that release dopamine, the dopamine makes you feel bad. It makes you worry. So it's your reaction to the dopamine. Is that the thing, that you react to dopamine badly?
Well, the genetic thing. Well, now we have to be careful, because we both know that it doesn't. Genetics doesn't. Well, it doesn't determine everything. But this one specific gene, means that those people like me who are sensitive to dopamine, it means that our dopamine levels are already like balanced and well in like normal calm situations. Whereas those SP kind of types, those who require the external stimulation, their dopamine levels are low, so they need external stimulation to get it to the same level that I have normally. So if I go to those activities, or I get the external stimuli that they enjoy, my dopamine levels will go too high. So I will be really like, it's not the so there is this how do you call it? This perfect level. That's not perfect, but this
equilibrium.
So it's somewhere like, so this middle point, this perfect balance, and then I'm there like in a normal state, but I easily go like too much. But these SP kind of types, they require external push to get it up the dopamine. That's like in a very simplistic version, and I might be wrong. So if someone knows better, just correct me. But this is how I read this specific.
Right. Right. Okay. So I'm just doing a quick graph for people. So, okay, if we say, so that's SP, and we say that's Hanna. Right. Okay. This is going to be normal. And for this one, this is going to be stimulated. This will be a way to test if I have this right. I'm just going to reposition my light so that the camera focuses. Right. So, is the hypothesis that this is the optimum level?
Yeah, optimum is the word.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, in your normal state, you have the optimum level of dopamine. If you go above this level, it's negative.
Yeah, it will be great anxiety. Yeah, anxiety and stress.
Yeah, and below this level,
it's boredom.
Probably,
boredom and.
Right.
Well, I don't know how they feel, but bored at least.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, that's good.
Right, I'll be able to do a spiffy graph in future about this. So SP is bored, then they get stimulated. Now, obviously, you know, there's SPs in the military. They can still have post-traumatic stress disorder, where it goes up here.
Yeah, of course.
It's just that the levels of it. So this very much fits. So this, again, another example of looking at something from another angle helps to prove things. And so, right. So NFs are more sensitive, and this also fits Kretschmer in NFs hypersensitive. Yeah. Or hyperesthetic. Right. That's good. Okay, boredom, anxiety. But for them to get at that optimum level, they require a lot more stimulation, whereas INFP doesn't, or might need to read a book or something.
So what this means, what this means is that usually SP kind of types, and this is also in both Darius, I think in Darius' book, and also in these temperaments. Persian is that SP types usually fare well in stressful situations.
Yes, so they're the best.
So they're best. Whereas I don't. But,
so if you want someone to be a firefighter or a fighter pilot, SP is the best person for the job.
Oh yeah, all kind of emergency kind of situations. ER, doctors and nurses.
Yeah, surgeons. Lots of things can go. That's why I think Ben Carson might be an ISTP. Right, recently he said, just get the shape right. Recently he said, when there was a shooting in America, he said, well, he just used the logic of, well, I would have told everybody to say, hey, we've got to jump this guy, because at least then he's not going to shoot us all. And then people took that as an implicit criticism of that the other people didn't do that. But he was saying, no, you asked me what I would do. And so these little things that fit. I personally think is ISTP. You know, just because someone's religious doesn't mean they're the guardian.
No, of course not. EJR&D has said that he's a Christian nowadays.
Oh, just a bit. But one time he gave up and said, I'm not a Christian anymore. And then he just said loads of bad things happened to him. And then he said, I'm a Christian again. God, give me a kick up the arse. I'm back. What was it? Something about guardians and religion. Not just EJ&D. Oh well, thought's gone. Disappeared into the ether.
And I think I mentioned this before when I was listening to one of EJ&D's videos where he explained about this is a snowstorm thing.
Yes.
And he explained
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, and and that he said that it was probably the best day of his life when they were going like snowboarding, and then their car was stopped and it didn't work, and then there was a snowstorm and they were in the middle of nowhere, and he had to go and ask for help, and they were really cold, and he said he was really enjoying it fully. And I was thinking that would be a nightmare. I would be.
Did he have an audience for it as well? What I mean is, other people were there to see him.
I'm not sure. I don't remember if he was alone or not. But he had to. I remember that he had to go to several different places before he got his car to the to be repaired, and it was a story. And he was really thrilled when he was explaining about it and describing the situation. And I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, he was
very FP.
Probably dopamine optimum at that moment.
Yeah.
Right. That's great. Yeah, I'll try and do a graph on that.
But hey, I have to check that. I will send you some links. I will send you some links on that specific.
Excellent.
After this.
Excellent. I'll ask you. I'll tell you what Viktor said about. All right. I asked Viktor, how does NI and SE work together in the INFP?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, he wrote, although his weakness, he may expose himself to danger in order to prevent violence.
Mm.
So, with the INFP, with their creative NI, they can see how bad things can happen. And because they are humanitarians, they are willing to do something that really scares them in the aid of that humanitarian cause. Well, like their own personal humanitarian cause. And I would say that would be a good demonstration of them walking the walk. And they would actually be very courageous in my eyes, because somebody's doing something for something they believe in, even though they are really, really scared at the time of doing it, versus, say, an ESTP who's not scared in that situation and just doing it. So the true level of how brave someone is they're doing it even though they're really, really scared.
Yeah. That's also very Enneagram 6, by the way. This kind of doing scary things, fighting their own fears.
Do you think it's almost like, even though it's scary, the conscience is worse? So you'd feel actually worse if you didn't do it?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
the shame would be bad. I mean, unbearable. The shame of not doing it would be unbearable.
Right. So the shame is worse than the fear during the moment. Right. So that's a little tip there for writers. Get some characterization for a character and mention. There you go. That's
also and that's also why I think. My experience in virtual world, not in real life, because I don't know many ESTPs in real life. But my experience is that there are more Enneagram 8 ESTPs than Enneagram 6 ESTPs.
Yes. 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 So, for instance, one storyline that you can have that would exhibit this is you can have a character that is a coward, and they think they're a coward because they're scared. And if they're like an Enneagram 6, but the shame of that, it will eventually get them to a point where the situation then happens again, where they will demonstrate their bravery, but again, be really scared while doing it, but doing it because their conscience outweighs the fear at that moment. And so you can have an arc for that character. Now, it'd be quite a cliched story, but that has been done in the past.
Hey, you froze again. Did you
I?
hear me? Yes.
Oh, even though I froze?
Or was it me? Oh, wait. Was it, maybe it was me, if you didn't hear me.
Yeah, I was just saying that you can get a character who was a coward who ends up being brave.
Yeah.
But they end up being brave because they've been shamed into it. And they eventually turn out, and again, it's their self-image, and eventually... And then someone can turn up at the end, and then they'll probably say, hey, he's actually braver than the brave guy because he did it even though he was scared to death. He still did it. Rather than just a sensation seeker. So what we could write about the SE is, you've talked about how EJR&D experienced it. What's your experience in that situation of a snowstorm?
I haven't been, thank God, I haven't been in a similar kind of situation, but I have been in some situations which have been stressful, and I can't say that I would enjoy them at all. They have created a lot of anxiety. I tend to, which is very typical for people like me, is to underperform under stress. So I will not be at my best if I'm in that kind of situations, even though I can act almost rationally in some kind of dangerous situations. But it's like I can feel that I'm overly tense, and it goes. Yeah, and I have tendency to hypertension also, but yeah, also that, but in general to hypervigilance. How do you say it? Hypervigilance.
Yeah, hypervigilance. Yeah.
Yeah. Because life can easily be too stimulating in a negative way to me. So I tend to avoid those kind of situations that would increase the possibility to end up in a snowstorm, metaphorically.
Yeah. So that really fits INFP better than ENFJ. I think that in order for you to be ENFJ, there would have to start coming up with some caveats where, it might be genetic. It might be the gene. She could be an ENFJ with a gene to do with the dopamine system. Or maybe she's an ENFJ and she's an Enneagram 6. So you have to start to use caveats. Whereas
but that's well, I understand that we can use those, but then we're thinking, why make it more difficult than it is?
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like, it's in order to justify ENFJ, we have to start using caveats to explain these very important things. Whereas with INFP, there aren't as many areas where you don't fit the profile where we have to start looking for explanations. Because is there anything that you've seen in the INFP profile which is not you?
Yes. It's usually the parts that are more like Enneagram 4, so this poetic, emo kind of stereotypes. I'm not very emo or poetic. And also, well, that's what someone can read that as a caveat, that I say that, well, I'm Enneagram 6 SX, which makes me more like a counterphobic, which makes me more like a leader type in some situations. So yeah, the problem now is that what is more likely?
Why would so is that supposed to be like sexual instinct? Why would a sexual instinct make someone more of a leader?
Well, no, but they just say that if you're type 6 SX, they are called the warrior, not, this is like WARRIOR, the warrior.
The warrior, the fighter.
Yeah, the fighter. So the type 6 SX is called the warrior. So they are,
the counterphobic 6.
Yeah, they're usually counterphobic, and they are prone to this kind of
Yes, so I imagine, yes, an INFP counterphobic 6 could be mistyped as an ISFP, especially if the people doing the mistyping don't know about their Kersey temperaments.
Yes, that's true.
So, for instance,
I believe that's true.
yes, well, there we go. We are multi-angle thinkers. Right, I better go back to the. How much longer do we have left, Hannah?
10 or 15 minutes.
Right then, let's get a move on. We've got these bullet points to get through. So, often does not stand confidence. So,
what do you mean? What do you mean?
You can
I don't stand it in
basically, it's this is predicting that you don't like Donald Trump, I suppose, or just anyone that's confident. I can't stand that man.
It's true. I guess if someone is overly confident, I become more reserved and a little bit like suspicious, and even cynical sometimes.
I think though, if you talk for a minute or however you want to about why you don't like Donald Trump, I think that will be. I think people will get a lot out of that in terms of
why I don't like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Do I have to talk about him? He's sort of he's some kind of a perfect example of person that, I mean, his whole life embodies all that I hate. You know, it's I mean, there's probably nothing in his life that I would admire in any way, and he proves it in almost every interview and every comment he makes.
Right.
I don't know. The worst things are, the worst thing is that he's so sexist. That's like.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the worst thing. And racist and yeah.
And even when he apologizes, like.
Does he apologize? I haven't seen him.
Oh yeah, I don't know if you knew what he said about Carly Fiorina.
Ah, yeah. Yeah. Well, that wasn't brilliant.
When he said, "You have a beautiful face." Oh God, Donald. And so, one of the things that Jeff would say that is ESTP is the way he changes positions all the while. He is a political opportunist. It was for Obamacare and then against Obamacare. And Peter Schiff has described him as the best politician, right? And this is a backhanded compliment because of the fact that he promises everything to everyone, and is just such a demagogue. Because the FI polar thing, where the only thing he believes in is himself, and he's willing to say anything in order to get elected.
Yeah.
And of course, that's the opposite from INFP. That has very clear things that they want to stick to. So it's not just that he is unethical. He's inconsistent with being unethical.
Yeah.
So it's like, at least be consistent with your horribleness, Donald. Keep changing onto different things. And so the hypocrisy probably irks you as well. That'd be fair?
It is bad. But did I? Yeah, I told you that EJ said that Donald Trump is ISTJ.
I think that EJ doesn't want Donald Trump to be his type.
It's quite it's curious that I like to watch EJ sometimes. I do get irritated about him. But I like to watch him because I want to observe someone who is so opposite to me. You know, it's I take it as a learning curve for myself, because he repeats, especially when he's analyzing or describing FI ego types. He often mentions this, that especially INFPs are, the worst part of INFPs is that they think that other people feel the same as they do. So that's like that INFPs make the worst mistake of thinking that other people are like them. And that's their biggest sin.
I think I've been amused by some of his latest ones, or ones about a month ago, when he talks about projecting. It's he that's projecting into the time, like when he talked about ESFJ, because he didn't like, because he had a bad experience with one, and then in videos in the past he said positive things about ESFJs. So he does projecting as well.
Oh yeah, he does a lot of projecting, but I understand that when I watch him, I realize that I have absolutely no means to affect him, like in any way. So so we would have, I mean, it's somehow frustrating to realize that I could probably say nothing that could ever change his perspective or his mind, because he just doesn't value anything that I do. Or, you know, and it's it's somehow, I don't know, absurd in a way, and also sad, but then again, I think it's good to learn that it's just, some people just are very different and can't necessarily do anything about it.
The reason why I brought up these two individuals is that they are clearly ESTP, and massive distinction between INFP and INFJ, between how they react to that individual. I think it's on record, so I will go. I think I talked about this with Anthony. Yeah, Anthony is right. So Anthony Rodriguez, so Latino. He, because he's INFJ, he likes the manner of Donald Trump, finds him funny, but he hates what he says. So you can sort of see like the socionical instinct towards his jewel. But actually what he says irks Anthony.
That's interesting because, it's interesting because I absolutely hate his manner of speaking. I mean, that's almost the worst than his content. I mean, with Donald Trump, also with EJR&D, his manner of speaking is really triggering to me.
Yeah, and that's where I think people should use quadras and concentrate on communication styles and be very careful when they think about values, because values can be changed by a lot of things.
Yes.
So, for instance, recently when I took a Kersey temperament test, I scored as idealist rather than rational because of the values. But the values were coming from Enneagram 4. Whereas if I'm purely assessed on the way I think, then I very much think fit Viktor Gulenko's LT LII profile. Right, so have we got about 5 minutes left now, Hanna?
Yes.
Right, okay. Are you impressionable and vulnerable?
What is impressionable? What does it mean?
Oh dear. Impressionable. Right.
I'll check it. I can check it in Finnish. It's easier if I do it.
Right. It is. They usually say that young people are impressionable in that they would follow the example of somebody else. I suppose it's easily manipulated or impressionable.
I'm not necessarily very impressionable.
They usually say about children, where they'll say, don't act like that around children, you'll create a bad impression. Children are impressionable, they will pick up bad habits if they see an adult doing it.
Well, it might be that I understand this differently, but when I was a child and a teenager, it happened several times that I was in a group and there was a lot of group pressure to do something. For instance, I remember as a child, one of our friends had stolen a cigarette from their parents, and then they wanted to smoke it. And we were at elementary school, and we were standing in a circle, some five of us or something. And I was the only one who said that I don't want to taste it, I don't want to take it. And I was still standing there, and I was just saying no. And it happened, similar kind of things have happened several times in my, also later as teenage. So I have been able to like keep to my values even if they're under social pressure. Yeah. So
in that particular example, it really is going against your FI, and your FI is going to win out.
Yes.
What about vulnerable? Well, you're any type 6, and they feel vulnerable, don't they?
Yeah, I would say I am, but I try to hide it.
Okay. So even from the viewers in this hangout. Okay.
I shouldn't have said that, but yeah, I'm sensitive, and I get hurt, but I always say that I'm like a cat. So if I get hurt, I go to my cave and lick my wounds alone. So I will try to hide it.
There's certain cats that will go bare their claws and teeth. The ISFP cat will react like that.
I will react also like that, but then I will go to my cave. And,
yes.
Yeah. So it both happens.
How about cannot put pressure on people?
I can put pressure on people.
Ooh.
But not always. It's I don't enjoy it. It feels uncomfortable, and I avoid it. But if it's necessary, I can put some pressure on people.
And ENFJs can do that. I'll just say that to the audience. Even though I do think, right. Right. Oh yeah. I think there's a bit of a connection there. Right. Yes. Right. Gotcha. This comes from the way Viktor defines the functions. Because it's SE plus rather than SE minus. SE minus is about putting pressure on people. So it's like subordination. And SE plus is resistance. So it will put cannot put pressure on people, but sharply resists being controlled.
That's true. Like I said, these examples from my childhood, and I had similar things in my teenage years. I did resist any attempt to dictate me to do something I don't want to do.
Right. How about the final bullet point? Her kindness is sometimes abused, as it is difficult to refuse requests.
I don't look so kind, so people don't necessarily realize that they could abuse my kindness.
Ooh.
But I do with people close to me. I tend to I don't easily refuse requests. So I have ended up sometimes in situations where I've overextended my empathy and my time. For instance, if people are, especially if my friends or someone in my family is having a hard time, I have usually ended up being the listening to their problems and trying to help, giving support.
Right. So we'll finish off with the complicated bit. And I asked Maria what this meant, and she said it was a bit tricky. She wasn't sure herself. And I will have a bash at it. I'll have a go at trying to explain it. So the break position is the function that is created almost from scratch. The usual name of the function is break, as its activation tends to slow people down and drain them. Okay. I'll talk about what it is to ISFJ, and then I'll talk about how I experience it. ISFJ creates new relationships by bringing people together and expects the business part to be custom made for his activities so he won't overexert himself. Okay, because Fi and Te are paired, so they expect the Te probably to naturally follow on from relationships. So it's like they bring two people together, they network two people together, they expect them to implement their project without being enforced, because the ISFJ wants to relax. Okay, now I'll talk about how it is for me. So I'll show what it is for me. So this is the relationship between SE and NI for INTP. Right, and this is why INTPs and INFPs are SE polar. NI. Right. Good at predicting the consequences of an action, provided he understands its intrinsic logic. And because of that, we are cautious, because we know the consequences of our action. So, when the INTP comes to a situation where they are SE types, if someone confronts them, they will respond in the moment without necessarily thinking about the consequences. Can't force or control other people. In an emergency situation, stays passive and hesitant unless someone close to him is involved, because we can see the negative consequences of acting. So we are, it's like, oh, do I confront this person? How could this go wrong? And we are fearful of how we sense things can go wrong. So we might have a sense of, oh, if I'm confrontational, we have a fear of where it could lead to. And so this is how our NI holds back our SE. And it would be pretty similar, I guess, for that connection between creative NI and break SE is the same for INFP. I don't know if you feel that you're held back, Hanna, by the fear of doom, of negative consequences of acting.
Yeah. Well, I'm Enneagram 6, yeah, so yes, it relates to that too. Yeah. But yeah, hey, but was INFP? But was the? I always forget this. But was the plus and minus in the same way as with INTP?
It was the opposite way around. INTP is SE minus, INFP is SE plus.
So, do you think the difference there is?
The emphasis there was on it said that the INFP could resist pressure, but not necessarily put it on other people. Whereas not good at forcing or controlling other people, because they tend to go too far, tend to be too. I sometimes call it SE bipolar, where it's like they don't know. It's just like ENTP and ESTP are black and white with their use of FI. I think INTP would be black and white with their use of SE. And like someone may react, "Hey, you're being too pushy there," and then.
Well, that's what that's interesting, because that's what I've heard all my life, that I'm too pushy, that I'm too like intimidating in some situations, and I'm too much in some ways. So I've learned to control my expression quite a bit.
Exactly, and that's what can happen with SE. SE bipolar. We could both be described as that.
Yeah, and I can definitely see that it's not easy for me to have a balance with it. So it's quite it's either or, yeah.
So for instance, if we say FI people are full of emotions, but we can also say EJR&D is full of emotions, even though it's FI polar. So it's like extreme emotions, though.
Yeah, it's funny. You can see it from him.
So,
with that.
So we could say that we are full of extreme emotions to do with feeling pressure and putting pressure on.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It basically comes across as crude use of SE. Whereas I think from our point of view, we are not seeing much subtlety with how SE DOMs use SE to control people. Because
no, because it feels intimidating in some way.
So we're probably hypersensitive to it.
Oh, yes.
And so that is why, and even in your profile, it said, you will resist any attempt to control you. And I think that was right there. So I'll just put that there, then I'll then we can sign off. That is ISFJ. That's not right. That is that ISFP? Bingo. Yes, that's it. Just zoom in. SE. There we go. And so key thing there, yeah, sharply respond to attempts to dictate. So ESTP will try and control you. ESFP maybe. Although it would be more ESTP, because ESFPs are more about their own freedom.
Yeah.
They will try to put pressure on you. But you won't have it. So
yeah, I can recognize this resistance very well.
Right.
And that's why I have overreacted sometimes if I have interpreted someone as putting pressure, whereas they haven't really done that, but I'm overly sensitive to.
Yes, yeah, same with me. And then we just have a quick comparison with me in this function. I think this is, yes, with my polar. Oh, you see, it's scalable vector graphics, so that's why it doesn't go blurred. Before I kill the share screen, go in a bit. Yeah, there we go. Right. Part of the problem there is the NE. I mean, but yes. And so when I'm reading this, I'm just like, wow. And it's like, why is Viktor's profile so good? Oh, he's 9TP true too.
Ah, yeah.
So big difference with INTJ.
Yes.
Whereas them, I think they like to try and put pressure on people, but because it's a weak function, it comes across as a bit ham-fisted.
Yeah. So do you tend to ignore rules?
It depends if there's a danger with ignoring them. If there are consequences, because remember, we can see the consequences. So it's like, is there a negative consequence to ignoring this rule? So for instance, the way I've written my novel is I've got a completely different speech indication system where I want to indicate who is speaking before they speak, because it then sort of sets the scene of, so the person, when they're reading it, they imagine who's speaking, and then how they say it, and then the actual speech. Whereas in most speech indication systems, in most novels, it's what is said, and then it will, so it's like, so you have no, whilst you're actually reading it, you have no clue how it's said, and then it will say, says Paul grumpily. But you see, the sequence is wrong. If it was Paul says grumpily, and then the, right, first of all, right, I imagine who's saying it, how they're saying it, and then the actual speech. And in a script, you will have the cue, Paul, parenthetical, grumpily, and then the speech. So that the sequence goes into the mind, right? And so even though that is not the normal way of indicating speech at all, I'm doing it like that. I'm doing it the right way. So I've ignored a rule that way. But you see, I don't know. I'm not going to get whacked over the head for ignoring that rule. You hate that. That last one. Repelled by atmosphere, crude competition. Yep.
I also hate. I also hate that.
But as you were saying about with the when it said that they could be brave if the shame was worse than the fear, with INTP, I think it can be. Right, we're going to wind down soon. With INTP, I can think if someone is bullying an INTP, they could feel it so badly that they might come to the point. Well, they might be like feel it so hot, so negatively that they come to the conclusion, oh, the consequences can't be any worse than this. And then they overreact, and then it's then they're the sort of person who could crack, and then the person who's pushing them might be in trouble because they weren't expecting the person to react that way.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying I'm a psycho. I'm just saying that can happen with some INTP.
Yeah, but interesting. Do you remember in Dario's book, he says that INTPs of all the types, they have they have like no action in the shame. Well, I don't remember the name of the area they are behind here.
T5, left ear.
Yeah, yeah, which is the one that feels the shame, and the INTPs don't have, but then they can suddenly feel like if there is a lot of pressure, it can like suddenly explode, sort of.
Yes.
And then they will become like really like red and shaking and like really clumsy and so it goes sort of like overboard.
Oh yeah, and if people want to really see this, so this is like physical evidence of SE break. It's in Dario's video. Dario Nardi, Google authors, neuroscience of personality. That's where he talks about that.
Oh yeah.
Right then, so summing up. Now you've been through all the blocks. Hanna, what do you think of the INFP profile?
That's what I want to be, but well, we don't know. We don't know if it's just my fantasy. Yeah, I have to study it, you know, again, like slowly, and I want to compare it to this EIE or this ENFJ or this EI profile once it is ready.
Yes.
I still do, and as we have talked, I feel most connection to Delta, Quadra, and to NFP type. So, and also, as I said, that my husband took some tests, and he always tests as ISTJ, or in this case, one case he tested as ESTJ.
Right. This is a cheat sheet for people if they want it. It's also an advert for Peter Schiff, Mises.org, and Praxgill, who talks about economics. Right.
Nice. That's like what does it have to do with this?
It's nothing to do. It's total self-indulgence on my part, where I thought I'd put some adverts in.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the cheat sheet for the SOCIONICS MBTI.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are any other graphics in here that could interest people. I have put in for all the super INTPs out there that might go, ooh, ratings dichotomies.
That's pretty wow. So what do you think? What do you think about INFP for me? Or this?
Ooh.
RT.
I think that you see, the thing is, I respect Victor's opinion so much, and he obviously knows like 100 times more than me. So I think if Victor says ENFJ, I'm like, I can't discount that. But personally, I think INFP. But I do see these things where in other hangouts where you talked about how you can take charge of people. So, but if I didn't know about Victor's diagnosis, then I would say 99.9% INFP, because like the intertype relations fit, the SE polar fits, the FI versus TI fits, the SI launcher, actively compassion from seeing discomfort in other people, that fits. Auxiliary NE fits. Manipulative stroke, inferior stroke, suggestive TE fits. All those functions fit.
Yeah, one thing that I look forward to seeing is this NE polar, because I find it hard to imagine that I would be NE vulnerable.
Yeah, that would be for
No, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I'm really tired, as you can see.
That's my fault.
Yeah, but because it was when I was diagnosed as ESI. Yeah, sorry, ISFP. Yeah, that's
great.
when I thought.
We can go through that profile, because I have the Model A profile.
But SI vulnerable is also weird, or SI break.
We can do that profile as well, because all I have to do is share the screen and go in through the Wikisocion profile.
Yeah, because I admire and feel strong. Admire. Well, admire is a good word, but all the things that I read about SI appeal to me. So I feel strongly drawn to SI, which I don't think.
Do you want to tell the audience what actual your preferences were on Dario's? Actually, we're going to do a video on that, aren't we? But
yeah,
generally, you did say that. Yeah, we'll watch out for that, future folks. We're going to do keys to cognition, Dario's free website.
Yes.
And if he's got an even better one called NeuroPQ, but you'll pay for that. So business logic with Dario, his INTJ, got that business logic. So I'll leave it at that. Logic. Right.
Yeah. Well, we can talk more about those. My preferences then.
Do you think we should sign off now, Hannah?
Yeah, we can sign off now.
Okay. Bye, folks.
Bye.
Bye.